If you remember, we were talking about the world of Barzakh and different categories of people. I said that there is one place in Barzakh which is, of course, reserved for those very righteous ones. And these very righteous ones, of course, are in two categories themselves. One are Muqarrabun, one are those who are just a bit below them, not reaching that level of Muqarrabun. Now, the other category, which is the middle category, I call this category as the sleepwalkers. Why? Because life here is much slower than in the upper Barzakh, so to speak. It's, you know, when we sleep here, of course we are still alive, and our heart beats, we see dreams, such things, but we don't have that spectrum of life that we have when we are awake. The same thing there. These people, of course, when I call them sleepwalkers, are much more alive than us, much more understand, but compared to those who are in the higher Barzakh, they are just like if they are sleeping. Their level of comprehension, their level of understanding is below the people in the higher Barzakh. The enjoyment, the pleasure which they enjoy for these people is not as much. However, of course, compared to us, is huge. What they receive there, if they are good, what they receive there is not even something that can come into our imagination, and the type of life that they have, the type of movement that they have. Now, why they are in this category? Because they were not very evil and not very good. It's majority of people, majority, as I said, 9,999 person in 10,000 is in this category. They had mixed good and evil. They could not distinguish between right and wrong very clearly. And that's not, they are not judged at this point. Children are in this very huge and vast spectrum of grades. Mentally handicapped people are also in this category. So we see that a huge number of people. If we go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Now, there is one hadith which is very important, and it gives us huge understanding about what happens in Barzakh for the people who are staying there. It's not just staying there doing nothing. No, they are actually developing, and this hadith tells us a lot about how they develop. Now, here, Relational Kanasi asked Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. He says that I said to Imam Baqir alayhi salam, فَمَا حَالُ الْمُوَحِّدِينَ الْمُقِرِّينَ بِنُبُوَّةِ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم من المسلمين المذنبين الذين يموتون وليس لهم إمام ولا يعرفون ولايتهم. Okay, this is about sinful Muslims and Muslims who do not know anything about the walaya of A'imma alayhi salam. They are Muslims, they believe, they pray, they fast, but of course they sin as well. And the most important, they don't know anything about the wilaya of the Imam. Now, either they are Shia, but their level of understanding is very low, or they don't believe at all in Imam. Now, look what Imam alayhi salam says. So, the hadith says, I said to Imam al-Baqir, may Allah bless you, what is the situation of the Muslims who are sinners but believe in Tawheed and confess to the Prophet of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they die while they have no Imam and do not know about your wilayah? So it's very clear, who are we talking about? Now, the Imam alayhi salam answers, the next slide, these people would remain in their graves and would not come out of it. Now, would not come out of it means that their level of movement is very limited. They are not like those who have gone to paradise in Barzakh, who can move freely wherever they want to go. That's the meaning of they remain in their grave. they are confined in a specific place in Barzakh, which is attached to their grave, of course. Now, whoever of them who has good acts and did not manifest enmity, so he's not an enemy of Imam alayhi salam, for him an opening will be made to the garden that Allah has created in the west. Now, when we al-Jannah allati khalaqaha Allah fil maghrib. Jannah, of course, paradise or garden, but you remember we said that we have a garden or paradise in Barzakh, one in Akhirah. Usually in our narrations, when it refers to a paradise which Allah has created in Maghrib, in the west, it refers to the Barzakh paradise. It doesn't refer to the paradise of Akhirah, because here, of course, we don't know how the directions are, but usually whenever narrations talk about Maghrib and Mashriq, in regards to Jannah and hell and heaven, they refer to the hell and heaven of Barzakh. Now, look what he says. These people would remain in their graves and would not come out of it, whoever of them who has good acts and did not manifest enmity, for him an opening will be made to the garden that Allah has created in the west, from which comfort would pour into his grave until the day of judgment. Now, this window or opening, whatever it is, whatever we translate, that this khad, yukhaddu lahu khaddun, just a sort of line of opening will open from his grave. Of course, we are not talking about physical grave here, we are talking about that place that they live in Barzakh. For entering paradise, whether in Barzakh or in Akhirah, we need a minimum of understanding of God, a minimum of pure feelings, a minimum of understanding what peace and sakina mean. What is salam, that Allah, wallahu yad'u ila dar salam. Now, this opening, which opens to their grave or their confinement where they are in Barzakh, would teach them, would elevate them, would educate them about what they need for entering paradise. So these people have a very good life there, actually. Not only, although they are confined, but not only they receive comfort and peace from that window, they learn as well. Actually, it's very interesting because Emanuel Swedenborg says that the people who are good but are not in the paradise in heaven, in that place, they have dream-like trances, that they dream about those things which are in paradise, and this gives them huge understanding and growth. And this is apparently what he has seen and is referring to. Now, on that day, he will meet Allah, when Allah, of course, resurrect people for the day of judgment, and he will hold him accountable for his good and bad deeds. Then his way is either towards hell or towards paradise. Thus, those people are held waiting for the command of God. Now, you see, the education is coming through these windows, but still they have to be judged, or to be judged, to be seen whether they are capable of going to paradise, they have acquired the minimum requirements, or they haven't. Now, the interesting thing here, if we go to the next slide, is that this is not only for Muslimin. It's not, because the hadith was talking about Muslimin who were not Shia, and Muslimin who did not know anything about Wilayah, and they were sinners. He says this is their situation, and they have to wait. And when we talk about sinners, we talk about those who commit grave sins, because small sins Allah would forgive. إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه يكفر عنكم سيئاتكم ويدخلكم مدخلا كريما. If you avoid, as we have in the verse of the Quran, if you avoid the grave sins that you are forbidden, then Allah will forgive for you your small sins. So when we talk about sinners, we are talking about those who have committed grave sins. They have to wait until the day of judgment. If through that window, because they were good people but they committed sins, if through that window the education comes, purity comes, and they could be purified, then of course they go to paradise. Now here it actually extends this to other people. وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ, and Allah will treat the mustaz'afin. Mustaz'afin are people of other faiths or people who have no faith at all, because no prophet has actually given them the message, or the message has reached them incomplete. Nowadays we know the message of Islam is reaching ordinary people in a very incomplete way by the way the media is actually portraying Islam. This is not something which would convince a person about this faith. So if they are not convinced because of all this propaganda, they are regarded as mustaz'afin. Mustaz'af is someone who's kept uneducated in this regard. So وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ. Allah does the same with mustaz'afin. Now these mustaz'afin who have no religion, or who have other religions, are not convinced about Islam, again, if their soul is pure, if they are sincere, then that window from paradise would purify them, and they will go to paradise. But if they are not, that window from paradise, if they are not, but they have had good actions as well, that window wouldn't help them. So Allah would do the same thing with mustaz'afin, wal-bulh, and to the mentally retarded, wal-atfal, and children, wa-awlad al-muslimin, and the children of Muslims, الَّذِينَ لَمْ يَبْلُغُوا الْحُلُمَ. Now, then for others, there are other things, a window to hell of Barzakh. فَأَمَّا النُّصَابُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْقِبْلَةِ فَإِنَّهُمْ يُخَدُّ لَهُمْ خَدٌّ إِلَى النَّارِ الَّتِي خَلَقَهَا اللَّهُ فِي الْمَشْرِقِ. For those Muslims who show animosity towards Ahlul Bayt, an opening will be made for them to the fire that Allah has created in the east. Again, this fire created in the east refers to the hell of Barzakh, from which blaze and sparks and smoke flow of hot water pours in until the day of judgment. Now, and this we can say that the same thing would be done for other people who are stubborn, people of other faiths who were stubborn, who did not act according to their own faith. The same thing would happen to them as well. Now, the purpose of that window from paradise is clear. It's for education. It's for growth. What's the purpose of this window from hell opening to the confinements of these people? It is because hell has an educational sort of function as well. It breaks the arrogance. The whole idea of hell and the humiliation and punishment that people experience there is to break the arrogance. And that arrogance is not only for those who don't believe in God. Many people believe in God, but they have that arrogance. If their arrogance is not crushed, is not removed during all these processes, which Allah has set there so that we do not fall in hell, then we go to hell to actually crush that arrogance. Now, this window from hell would have the same function. These people are arrogant people. These people are selfish people. Arrogance comes from selfishness, actually. The whole problem of man is his selfishness. This window, the function would be to break that selfishness, to break that arrogance, to bring humiliation to these people. Now, if it works, then on the day of judgment, because they are not judged yet, you see, if on the day of judgment Allah will judge them, they may go to paradise. Otherwise, they have this punishment in Barzakh and they have it in hell. Now, the meaning of فَإِنَّهُمْ فِي حُفْرَتِهِمْ لَا يَخْرُجُونَ مِنْهَا, I mentioned. They remain in their confinement, they don't come out. Now, features of this territory are time passes as fast as sleep. The way we sleep and time passes so quick, for them is the same. But of course, because it's a very long time, they have a long experience of life there. They are more occupied with sensual life. They don't very much still understand the spirituality because they haven't been spiritual people in this world. Limited wisdom and limited spiritual understanding, not possible for them to experience a life of higher rank. So this was the next slide. If we move to slide number 16. Now, Swedenborg, I told you that Swedenborg have talked about something like this window. You know, Swedenborg was not a Muslim, and these things are not in Christian theology. But the way he explains things seems to be very much in line with our narrations rather than in line with the Christian theology. And that's why he was called a heretic by Christians, although he always remained a Christian. Now, he says that people who are not evil, in that middle range, they have frequent dreamlike trances in which they see the paradise. This gives them excitement after it's finished. They understand the type of pleasure there. You remember I mentioned, we talk about pleasure, but we still don't know what pleasure is. We talk about peace, we still don't know what peace is. It is only to be experienced in paradise. You know, a tree is a tree. A picture of a tree is a tree as well. If you show the picture of a tree to someone and say, what is this? They say, this is a tree. And if you show a true, real tree to them and say, what is this? They say, it's tree. But how different is the real tree with the picture of the tree? The same thing. When we talk about pleasure, pain, and when we talk about peace, tranquility, these are just like pictures of those things. The real peace, the real love, the real tranquility, the real pleasure is going to be experienced there. So they understand the type of pleasure which is in paradise. Even a fraction of those pleasures cannot be described by the concept they already know. And these trances gradually change their state of life. They learn the meaning of purity or isma. In this way, they get prepared to enter paradise. So you see, when they are in Barzakh, they are actually going through a transformation which is not in their hand anymore, actually. It's not what they do, it's what Allah does with them. This is the important thing. Now, if you go to the next slide, slide number 17, then when we come below these two territories, so we had territory of the righteous, territory of the sleepwalkers, territory of the evil ones. Now, what is the definition of these evil people? Their love has been only for themselves. These evil people may be Muslims, maybe Christians, maybe atheists, maybe of any religion, you see, because it's not important what you confess. It's important what you practice. That is the important thing. So, for these people, their love has been only for themselves. They are devoid of any love for God and for good and for anyone else. Their psychology is that they are jealous of any good in others, so they want to destroy the good. And that's why they are sent to hell. If these people set foot in paradise, they absolutely make paradise a hell like this one. Like this, you see, in this world we are mixed. Look what the world we have. And Allah says, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. They are going to disagree just the way they are doing until the end of this world. Now, since God does not permit that they destroy good, they are always full of rage and hatred. And this is how the Quran describes for us the situation of the people of death. إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَحَقٌّ تَخَاصُمَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. This hatred and quarrel of the people of hell is haq. It means it comes from a true thing. It comes from its true nature. And of course, كُلَّمَا دَخَلَتْ أُمَّةٌ لَعَنَتْ أُخْتَهَا. Whenever a group comes, they curse those who have already entered, and those who are already in, they start to curse them. They are always full of rage, full of hatred. This creates in them a sense of enmity towards God. Because they say all beauty in God, you know, they see beauty of God, they see the grandeur of God, but this fills them with rage and hatred because they want it to be for them, not for God. Well, you see how a person can transform to a sort of monster like that. And since all power is from God, they are the weakest in the world. They talk of justice on their tongues, but their inner self triumphs on injustice. As soon as the light of God penetrates their soul, they pollute it by evil thoughts. It's not that God doesn't want to shine his light into their hearts, but when that light goes in, they change it into evil, into pollution, into darkness. You can even see this in some people in this world. You talk good to them, you do good to them, they change it into something very evil, something which is its opposite. And this is the state of these people. And therefore, these are going to be in the hell in Barzakh, and they are going to go to in hell in Akhirah. There is no place for them but the hell. لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. I fill the hell with man and with jinn. However, who أَلَيْسَ فِي جَهَنَّمَ مَثْوًى لِلْمُتَكَبِّرِينَ. It is a place for the arrogant. As soon as this arrogance is broken by fire of hell, which we don't know what type of fire it is, then of course these people can come out of hell, but it may take a long time or forever. They may stay there. Now, in the territory of evil ones, there are different tribes. Their territory is divided into different areas according to the type of their evil. They look like different tribes. They are filled with hatred of other tribes and of each other, and always they fight with each other. They transgress against each other. The punishment here has short-term preventive effects, since transgression and oppressing the weak has become their instinct. And I guess it's just my sort of feeling that the chains that Allah mentions for the people in hell, that they are chained, is probably because Allah wouldn't want them to inflict so much harm on each other. So sometimes Allah chains them, puts fetters on them, so that He contains them to some extent. Now, this territory of the evil ones has a correspondence that is called Barahut. Now, you remember we talked about the territory of the righteous ones. It's called Wad al-Salam, the valley of peace. Their place is called Barahut. Abu Basir asks from Imam Sadiq, and these ahadith are all in Kafi al-Kulaini, so these are not weak ahadith or unreliable ahadith. Sa'altuhu an arwah al-mushrikeen. I asked him about the arwah, the souls of the mushrikeen. He said, فِي النَّارِ يُعَذَّبُونَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا لَا تُقِمْ لَنَا السَّاعَةَ وَلَا تُنْجِزْ لَنَا مَا وَعَدتَنَا وَلَا تُلْهِقْ آخِرَنَا بِأَوَّلِنَا. He said they are punished in fire of hell, while they say, "Oh Lord, do not make the hour set in for us. Do not realize what you have promised us, do not fulfill what you have promised, and do not let our posterities join our early ones." First of all, they hate each other. Why they don't want the hour to come? Because they have a premonition, they have a knowledge that this is terrible, of course. The state they are living in is terrible, but Akhirah brings them even worse. The hell of Akhirah is not comparable to the hell of Barzakh. And from Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, قال شر بئر في النار برهوت الذي فيه أرواح الكفار. What an evil pit is in fire is Barahut, in which abode the souls of the kuffar. And this is all about Barzakh. And then from Imam al-Baqir, Inna lillahi naran fil mashriq. Again, you see, when we say mashriq and maghrib, we are talking about Barzakh. We are talking about hell in Barzakh or paradise in Barzakh. خلقها ليسكنها أرواح الكفار. Allah has created a fire in the east to accommodate there the souls of the mushrikeen. They eat from its zaqum and drink from its hot water all night. Then when the Fajr sets in, they rush towards a valley in Yemen called Barahut. Now, these wadis in Barzakh have a correspondence to places in this world which we don't know how it is. Its climate is hotter than the fires of this world. They meet and socialize there, and when night comes, again they return to the fire. In fact, this social life, even for the people in hell, is going to be there. We cannot live alone. We never can live alone. We always have to be, we are social creatures. Whether in this world or in Barzakh or in Akhirah, we are social creatures, and therefore we live socially. And these people, despite all their hatred towards each other, when Fajr comes and they are released from those punishments, they go to each other, and the place is, of course, in itself like a hell where they meet each other. Now, suitable observations. When I talk about these things from our riwayat, these are narrations. These are narrations from our A'immah, which comes from their knowledge. Some of it from their observations, but most of it from the knowledge that Allah has given them. When we talk about Swedenborg didn't have a knowledge like our A'immah. He had observations. And what he observed, this is very interesting. What he observed about these people in hell of Barzakh, he says their faces lack freshness of life, which gives them a scary appearance. Some faces are scorching black and some are fiery red. Some faces are deformed by pimples and rashes. Some have only bones and some look like being made of hair. Some faces only made of teeth. Their voice and tone invokes hatred and rage. In some, each is the manifestation of their inner hell. According to him, they cannot come out of this territory because in the darkness of this territory, they see each other as ordinary human beings. If they come to the light, they see the ugliness of each other and they would run away from each other. It is lit by a charcoal-like light. This is what he says. I don't know what is it. And other territories are lit by the light of God, of which they are blind. So these people, if they come out of that territory, they are blinded by the light of God because they cannot absorb the light of God. It is as if they are suffocating when they come out of it. Actually, we have two verses in the Quran which talks about people after having huge sorrow, grief, pain in hell, they try to run away from hell. And they manage to run away from hell, but they are brought back, or they actually come back themselves because they say that outside the hell they cannot live. Light of Allah blinds them. Light of Allah scorches them. So they have to go back. That's selfishness. It's all because of selfishness. When we are selfish, we cannot see someone else prosper. We cannot see someone else have power. We cannot see someone else has beauty. And these people, because they are so selfish, they cannot see and tolerate that beauty of God. So they go back. These two verses, one is in Surah Sajda, the other is Surah Hajj. كلما أرادوا أن يخرجوا منها من غم أعيدوا فيها. Whenever out of huge grief they want to come out of it, they are returned. They are returned means that they manage to go out. But they are returned probably because they see that there's no place there for them, or the angels bring them back. I don't know, but the idea of these people not being able to come, and if they want to come, they go back, or they are sent back, is there in the Quran as well. Now, Barahut is divided into two territories, the land of gloom and the land of fire. The land of gloom is home to those who are influenced by evil. The land of fire is home to those who are turned into evil. We have two types of evil people. One is those who are the root and essence of evil, and they lead others to evil. Now, those who are led to evil by these people certainly would not be placed in the same place. In Surah Ankabut, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّبِعُوا سَبِيلَنَا وَلْنَحْمِلْ خَطَايَاكُمْ. Now, the disbelievers say to the believers, you follow us, we take your sins. Now, Allah says they take their sins if they commit sins, and more than what they do, and their own sins. وَلَا يَحْمِلُنَّ أَثْقَالًا مَعَ أَثْقَالِهِمْ وَلَيُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. So Allah would give that sort of the demand that they have, or what they say to these people, that we take your sins. Allah says, okay, you will take their sins, but their sins will remain with them as well. And these people are the root of evil. This is where the land of fire, the fire of hell, is actually coming from them. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. These are the fire of the hell, firewood of the hell. And then some people actually live in this firewood, the blazes of this. This is what we call the land of gloom. According to Swedenborg's observations, some neighborhoods here are filled with brothels, rubbish with blood and excreta. Anyhow, so this is about different territories of Barzakh. Now we have to move into the next set of the last batch of our slides. If please you could upload the last batch of our slides, that we want to talk about a very interesting thing, and that is the social life in Barzakh. I just wait for these to be uploaded, please. The third batch, please. Yeah, thank you very much. This is the third batch. All right. There are ample evidence that the souls in Barzakh live in clusters, i.e. in communities, as in paradise. In paradise, we live in clusters and communities. We have many narrations, for example, when someone dies, they go to their families, or their families come to welcome them. And in one narration, which is very interesting, is that those who are good are unaware of what's happening in this world. Of course, they are living in a very nice place in Barzakh. And when a soul passes away, one of their relatives passes away, and goes to them, they become very happy because their place is good and they know that this man or this woman is saved, has come to them. Then they ask about different people. For example, how's Auntie Sach? For example, how's that uncle? If they say that he's still alive, they become happy. If they say that he's already dead, they become so sad because they know that they have fallen. In a sense, they haven't been able to make it to that good place. So this idea of living together, and the Quran about paradise, of course, is very clear. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُم بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Those who are good and their offsprings, they follow them in faith, we will make them join together, and they live in communities. So every society whose agents have free will on one hand and differences in taste and understanding on the other is in need of a social order. Now, both in Barzakh we have free will. Free will doesn't mean that we can make actions or act to our actions, but in that area in which we are living, we have free will of going to places. For example, we have free will of choosing things without that adding or reducing from our actions, which is going to be judged. Now, if we have this, and in paradise the same thing, and in hell the same thing, and of course we know that we are different. We have different understandings of God, different understandings of life, ourselves. So then we need a social order. This is evident in the world of angels as well. You know, angels, despite they are absolutely under the command of God, but they live a social life. They have hierarchy of commands, and they would not actually decide by themselves what to do. They have to be commanded by higher angels, and higher angels by higher angels. For example, in the Quran, we have إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين. This is the true, in truth, the word of an honored messenger, which is of course Jibreel. What it says is مطاع ثم. He is obeyed by angels. So he is at the top of the hierarchy. Now, if you go to the second slide, a number of angels work under the command of a higher angel, who is in turn under the command of other angels. And this verse in Surah Safat, وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. Every one of us has a known position in this hierarchy of angels. So, in Mi'raj, the Prophet saw an angel under whose command were 70,000 angels, each of whom were in charge of 70,000 other angels. So you see, 70,000 angels each of them are commanding 70,000, and they are all commanded by another angel, an archangel. So you will see that this hierarchy is there. They are intelligent beings. Well, whether they have free will or not, I don't know whether I have discussed it here or not, but Sheikh Mufid Rahmatullah alayhi says that yes, the angels have free will because they're intelligent beings. The only thing is that they don't have desires like us. And that's why Sheikh Tusi Rahmatullah alayhi, the student of Sheikh Mufid, believes that Iblis was one of the angels, although we have, following Allama Tabatabai and his very sort of sufficient arguments, we believe that he was a jinn. But Sheikh Tusi says, no, he was an angel. He was a fallen angel. And he believes in fallen angels because he believes that angels have free will, and sometimes, of course, they don't have desires, so there's no point for them sinning. But sometimes it's possible that they do it. Now, the question is, what constitutes authority in Barzakh? Because social life and hierarchy means authority. And authority, of course, in this world, how the authority comes. It's always based on force. Now, this force is usually either stems from military might or from tradition, charisma, will of people, political intrigue, or whatever, but it's force. It gives force to someone to exert and establish authority. In the hell, authority is based on might and on intrigue, because there is a social life there as well. In the territory of the close ones, authority is based on love only. Anyone closer to God is loved more and is spontaneously obeyed by God, by others, spontaneously obeyed by others. So the one who obeys God more has a higher hierarchy there. So every one of us, whether in Barzakh or in paradise, we have functions. Some of us are in authority, some others are not. You know, as I said, majority of people are going to go to paradise, although they don't have much understanding of God, but they go through all those stages which gives them that knowledge and understanding. However, not majority of them will have high authority, hierarchy, higher functions there. The closer you are to God, people tend to obey you, not out of fear or anything else, because they love to obey you. You know, when you see a very pious person, like for example, a mystical, spiritual man, an arif, you love, they allow you to accompany them, and they teach you something, and also do some service for them. This is, of course, a very low level of what I'm saying. There, anyone closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, other people love to obey him because they know that he knows better, he is better, he is purer, and so hierarchy comes from there. In the territory of the pious world, this authority is more complicated and is based on knowledge and goodness of the soul. The more knowledgeable who have more good in them are the leaders, because their decisions are made more in line with the ultimate beauty and good. This is what is understood from the following hadith. Now look at this hadith. This hadith is a very famous one. It's reported by Shia, it's reported by Sunni, it's reported by many different expressions. حملة القرآن عرفاء أهل الجنة والمجتهدون قواد أهل الجنة والأنبياء سادة أهل الجنة. The bearers of the knowledge of the Quran are the chiefs in paradise. Urafa here is not the plural of Arif, it's the plural of Arif. Arif is like someone who's in charge of a neighborhood. Like this, for example, borough mayors. We have a chief mayor, of course, mayor of the city, and then in every borough of the city, here in London, for example, we have different boroughs. Each borough has their own mayor. So Arif was a mayor of an area in a city. Now, those who have the knowledge of the Quran, or those who actually have for example, have memorized some part of the Quran, and they can read it, understand it, these are the Urafa, the Arifs of Ahlul Jannah. So among the inhabitants of paradise, these are like mayors in the city. وَالْمُجْتَهِدُونَ قُوَّادُ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. The Mujtahidun are those who strive hard to go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's, of course, nowadays Mujtahidun, the technical term for Mujtahidun means those who go and study fiqh and they can actually deduce the rulings, which is in itself a struggle, it's in itself a very difficult task, but it's not limited to them. Someone who strives hard to go closer to God. For example, you pray Salatul Layl, you recite Quran every day, you try not to backbite, you try to be good, to be humble. Okay, you go to paradise. I do not pray Salatul Layl. I'm an ordinary person, a mediocre Muslim. I go to paradise as well. Isn't the difference between us? Yes. You become my chief there in paradise. And the Mujtahidun are governors of the people in paradise. وَالْأَنْبِيَاءُ صَادَةُ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. The prophets are the leaders. So you see this hierarchy. And you see this function. The function is not the case that we are just going to live in paradise without any function. We have functions. What is the function of those who are below? We don't know. Even in Barzakh, actually some of our ulama have mentioned that some people are raised in Barzakh to the station of angels, and Allah calls them angels actually. And they say that these angels that Allah mentions in the Quran, that they came to help in Badr, especially, they were from those people in Barzakh who had been raised to the levels of angels, and Allah calls them angels. They are human beings, but they had a function of coming and helping the believers in this world. Now, in his commentary to Usul al-Kafi, Mullah Saleh Mazandarani was a very knowledgeable man who has written a commentary on Usul al-Kafi, mentions that apart from these three groups, other people are commanders and managers according to their different degrees. So we will witness a very organized and stratified community in paradise. And that should be the case in Barzakh too, because it's just a parallel. You see, anything you have in this world has a parallel there, or actually the other way around. Everything which is there has a parallel here, has a lower parallel here. Now here, to obey those in charge not only is not tasking, but is pleasurable, elevating, and enriching. Now, the above tradition, and whatever I said, confirms Swedenborg's observations. Again, I don't quote Swedenborg's statements as knowledge, because he didn't have knowledge like the knowledge of our A'imma or our Prophet, peace be upon him. He had observations, and he is just expressing his observations. He notifies that because the leaders there have utmost love They wish good for all, and because they excel others in knowledge and wisdom, they know best how to organize the affairs according to the law established by God. Now, what happens to children? First of all, what's the difference between children and grown-ups? Okay, children live in this world, they learn some concepts about God. You know, the whole idea of living in this world is that we become familiar with certain concepts which we didn't know before. وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُمْ مِنْ بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. When you came to this world, you didn't know anything. Now Allah uh, put for you eyes, ears, and intellect, so that you give thanks. It means you know, and then you give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are here to get to know certain concepts about God, and all of us will get that concepts. Of course, some of us would reject, some of us would accept, but these concepts we get. And then we have to act based on those concepts. Now, the children, especially those who grow up a little bit further, they have these concepts, but they don't have actions. Their actions, because they are not yet mature enough to make right decisions about their actions. So there is a problem here that children who pass away, okay, we say all of them go to paradise, but how is it possible they go to paradise while they haven't completed actions which are prerequisite for the paradise? Now, here, the views about what judgment will be passed on those who die at a young age differ. Most Christian theologians believe that only the children who are baptized will go to paradise. Well, nowadays maybe the Christian theology has changed, but the Orthodox theology, Christian theology, says that only baptism will save you, and only believing in the fact that Jesus is the Son of God would save you. Even the children, if they are not baptized, the same thing. Now, a minority of Muslim theologians believe that the children's fate depends on their parents' faith. The Shi'i theologians, however, believe that all children will go to paradise. Compared to the grown-ups, the children who die have one advantage and one disadvantage. This is very clear. On the positive side, they are sinless and hence open to any concept and wisdom that the angels would teach them. And of course, they don't go to hell. Now, you can say, isn't it good that all of us die at a young age before maturity so that all of us go to paradise? No, of course not. It is not, because there's a negative side to it. On the negative side, they have not developed concepts, feelings, and thoughts which are prerequisite for ultimate wisdom, which is, of course, the levels of paradise are graded based on the amount of wisdom that we have and we learn about God. When I say about God, it means about everything, because God is everything actually. Hence, they can only be taught to a restricted degree, and deeper aspects of wisdom cannot be known by them. Their purity is very different from the purity of the grown-ups. You see, we say the children of innocence, isn't it? They are ma'asum. But the ma'asumiyya of children is very different from the ma'asumiyya of grown-ups. If someone has grown up, desires have actually developed in them, then they are ma'asum. This is much, much different from the ma'asumiyya of children. For this reason, the children cannot enter the paradise of Barzakh immediately after death. Although eventually all the children will go to Barzakh, but they cannot immediately enter the paradise of Barzakh because they don't have that understanding and wisdom. They live in a very beautiful interim space under the guidance of the angels to prepare them for entering the paradise. These teachings have two aspects. One, to teach them the wisdom and knowledge which is prerequisite for entering paradise. Although even when they enter paradise, they actually serve others rather than being served, because they don't have that much wisdom. But even for that, they need a minimum prerequisite of knowledge and wisdom. To cleanse them from the wrong, the second aspect of the teaching is that to cleanse them from the wrong teaching given to them by their parents or their society, which are hindrances for entering paradise. Sometimes we see children who are 8 years old, 9 years old. I mean, they are quite immature. They develop certain evil ideas in their minds because this is taught to them by the society, and of course this should be purified for them. After this stage, they will join either to the close ones or the pious ones according to their inner capacities. What the angels teach them, it doesn't mean that whatever they are taught they learn. So the inner capacity and also the type of evil which has penetrated into them, the amount of purity that they receive determines which place they have to go. Again, according to Saeed, initially the children's appearance in Barzakh looks like the way they left this world, like a baby or 2 years old, but later their spiritual body grows to the age of a teenager and stops there, which makes quite sense that they wouldn't actually develop further. And according to those who say that those who serve in paradise are children who died at young age, it actually, if we accept that view, then it says that yes, they never grow up. وَيَطُوفُ عَلَيْهِمْ وِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ إِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ حَسِبْتَهُمْ لُؤْلُؤًا مَنْثُورًا. The ever eternal children, the eternal children would go around them and serve them, and you, if you see them, you think that they are scattered pearls because they are so beautiful, so shining, and therefore, as I said, if you accept that, وَلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ means they never grow up from that age. They will remain in that age. Now, the other question, which is the relationship between inhabitants of Barzakh and our world. Do the souls in Barzakh see and hear us in this world? Are they aware of us? Are they informed about us? Now, one basic principle is that as we are ordinarily unaware of their world, they are ordinarily unaware of our world. So, it's not the case that always they can see us, always they can sense us. Yes, there are moments, or there are exceptions for this general principle that of unawareness from this world. The exceptions are, for the close ones, there is no veil, of course. The close ones, they see, they hear. You go to Mashhad, when you want to enter, you recite the Izn Dukhul, you say Ashhadu annaka أنكم أحياء عند ربكم ترزقون ترون مقامي وتسمعون كلامي وتردون سلامي. I witness that you see my position, you hear my salam, you return my salam to me. For them, there is no veil between them and this world, the close ones. Other souls will have awareness according to their ranks. This awareness happens when they are given permission. So not always they can be aware of us. When they are visited in their graves, of course, we said that there is a connection between their confinement or the place that they are and their graves. And when an act of charity is performed for them, they become aware again. Sometimes this awareness is like seeing, sometimes it's just like sensing that someone is praying for them, someone is giving charity for them. The following tradition testify to the first occasion when they are given permission. Now, عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام وصادق عليه السلام إن المؤمن ليزور أهله فيرى ما يحب. The believer visits his family and would see what delights him and is veiled from what he dislikes. So, for example, your grandfather comes to your house when he is permitted, and by coming, it doesn't mean that the soul needs to travel. It's just looking. It's just giving permission to connect to you. Now, he see, for example, you are graduating from university, very good. You have started to recite Salatul Layl, very good. But for example, your daughter has put away the hijab. They wouldn't see it because this would distress them. And Allah doesn't want them to be distressed. So they see good things, but they don't see bad things. The believers visit his family and would see what delights him and is veiled from what he dislikes. The disbeliever visits his family and would see what he dislikes and is veiled from what delights him. Now, how often? Now, why disbelievers are like this? Because their state is always to connect to evil, to bad. So this is how it happens. Some visit every week and others according to their acts. So it means some may visit every day. Again, when we say visit, it doesn't mean that soul needs to travel. Just soul somehow puts attention, is the veil. Of course, they may put attention, but they may not see anything. The veil is lifted so they can see. In Surah Safat, the way the people of paradise and hell see each other is exactly the same thing. As soon as the people of paradise set their attention to someone in hell, they can see them and talk to them. Although they are in the hell and they are in paradise, in Surah Safat you see when it talks about the mu'minun قَالَ غَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ, one of the people of paradise says that إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ, I had a friend. يَقُولُ أَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ, used to tell me that, do you really believe about this nonsense that there is a أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا أَإِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ, that when we die and then we become dust, then we are going to be judged? Talking about this, then he says, قَالَ هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ, would you turn attention? Ittila is just when you turn your eye towards something, usually from a higher place to a lower place. هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. You see, he doesn't need to travel anywhere. He just turns attention. فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. He sees them in the middle of the hell, and then he starts to talk to him, and he hears. قَالَ تَاللَّهِ إِنْ كَدْتَ لَتُرْدِينَ. I swear by God, you were going to make me fall the same as you have fallen. So this is how we are going into a very different world, very different world. Just imagine the world before the internet and after the internet, how different this world is in terms of communication. You cannot imagine how advanced communication is there in that world and in the world of the dead in Barzakh. Ishaq ibn Ammar asks, the slide number 15, asked Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam that if the deceased would visit his family, he said yes. And I asked how frequently would he visit. He replied every week or every month or every year according to his station. And again, another hadith from the same person, from Imam al-Qasim alayhi salam, says that, does the deceased visit his family? He said, yes. I asked how frequently. He replied, according to their merits. There are some who visit every day, some who visit every 2 days, some who visit every 3 days, and so on and so forth. This relation sometimes, next slide, gets so strong that the souls find permission to establish contact with the living ones in dream. And the following hadith tradition testifies to the second occasion. Okay, that's a different thing. The second occasion was when they are visited. That relation that I talked about, deceased and his family, is sometimes gets so strong that they get in touch in dreams. The following tradition testifies to the second occasion when they are visited. So whenever they are visited, they feel or they see or they sense us. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "Zuru mawtakum fa'innahum yafrahuna biziyaratikum." Visit your deceased ones, for they rejoice from your visits. And from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, "Wallahu la ya'lamuna bikum." I swear by God, they know of you. Now, this know of you, ya'lamuna bikum, may mean they sense you, or they become aware of you somehow, or they see you. It is very, of course, a comprehensive sort of term. لا يعلمون بكم ويفرحون بكم, and they rejoice seeing you and feel close to you. يستأنسون بكم, feel like to have your company actually. This istinas is when you like to have someone's company. Now, the following traditions testify to the third occasion when an act of charity is performed for them. Again, they sense it and they feel that connection. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, "Inna al-mayyit la yafrahu bit-tarahhum alayh wal-istighfar lah kama yafrahu al-hayy bil-hadiyyati tuhta alayh." The deceased would rejoice when you ask mercy and forgiveness for them, in the same way as the living ones rejoice from receiving a gift. And to the extent that if they are in strife, God would remove that strife from them. This is nothing to do with shafa, it's just a gift that you give them. Okay, that's the end of our discussion about Barzakh. There is a sort of discussion at the end about angels that I don't think we can. It's not very much related to the world of Barzakh, although the world of Barzakh is the world of angels as well. As soon as we enter Barzakh, we see the angels. The first angel, of course, the angel of death, and then following by other angels. However, it's not a very related matter, so we leave it here and attend to some questions, inshallah, now with a salawat from you. Okay, let me see these questions now. Oh. Okay, the first question is, why would Allah open a window to hell for children who have not reached maturity? They are innocent. No, I didn't say a window for children. Children, as I said, the children never would have such things. The children will be taught, and the children are not yet evil. We cannot call them evil, even if they have done some wrong things. We cannot call them evil. So there is no window for hell to hell for children. Can you explain mustaz'afin again? So it is both mentally retarded and those who are not guided towards Islam will be treated the same. No, of course, each of them have the same treatment, have their own treatments. However, they are all fall in that category of the middle stage, for which there is a need for education about the wisdom which is needed for paradise. Whether mentally retarded, they need their own special, of course, needs and education. Those who are mustaz'afin are those to whom a prophet is not sent or are not given a complete account of a faith, especially the faith of Islam, of course. These are called mustaz'afun. Now, for these people, we know some of these people are very good, okay? But, for example, they haven't prayed before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way we pray. They need to be taught about how to establish connection with God. So a window will be opened for them to learn these things. How are non-Muslims? Yeah, mustaz'afin means oppressed. Of course, not oppressed in the sense only of being oppressed by an oppressor, those who are kept weak. Literally, it means those who are kept weak. Now, kept weak for different reasons. One reason may be because of oppression, the other reason may be because of not having received guidance. These are all called mustad'afun. Now, so how are non-Muslims, those who are not guided, oppressed, and not baligh children oppressed? Well, I mentioned oppressed not in that sense. It means someone who is kept weak for different reasons. What is the connection between Barzakh and Wadi Salam in Najaf? Well, we can have two different sort of views on this. One is that the same as a wadi in Yemen is connected to Wadi Barahut, that Wadi Salam, which is the abode or the valley of peace for the believers, has a connection, which we don't know how that connection is, to this earth, to this world, which that connection falls in Wadi Salam in Najaf. The other view is that, well, actually, this cemetery was made much later than these narrations and ahadith, and it was actually called Wadi Salam after the Wadi Salam of the narrations. In fact, it is a sort of good name that they have chosen for this cemetery. For example, in Tehran, we have this cemetery called Behesht Zahra, the paradise of Zahra. Of course, it's a name. It's a name given to this cemetery. And Wadi Salam is a good name for any cemetery to say that, okay, those people who are here are actually in Wadi Salam of the arwah and the souls. Does this mean that each soul has their own personal hell? God forbid. Inshallah, Allah will remove our misdeeds before we die. We don't experience hell at all. But yes, here, if we are selfish, we have our own hell. You see, the more we distance ourselves from selfishness, the more we become released of agony, of worry, of depression, because selfishness usually brings greed, jealousy, and all these things, and worry about the past, worry about the future. So the more we actually detach ourselves from those selfish things, the more enlightened our souls will become. However, we hope that before death, inshallah, or at the moment of death, or by that squeezing of the grave, Allah will remove all these things, and we wouldn't experience anything of the hell. What about infants die right at birth or shortly after birth? Any infant whose soul is created by Allah, and that they say about 4 weeks after the conception, any person whose soul is created and blown into the body, that soul is going to be resurrected. And of course, these are the purest of the pure, and still they need to grow, still they need to be educated until they become from those well done, if we accept that view. Actually, the Fuqaha have also discussed this, and theologians, that this hadith that the Prophet said that tawaladu tanasalu fa inni ubahi bikumul umam, procreates more and more, because on the day of judgment I am going to boast to other nations about your number, and walau bisakht, even with an aborted child. And that means an aborted child will become a person later on, if the soul is already created. Now, some say even if the soul is not created, I don't know, that is very difficult to understand that. Since they don't have a body as they had on earth, how do they grow to be a teenager? Their spiritual, as soon as the soul is created in the body, the spiritual body also is originated. and they go with that infant spiritual body. The infant soul goes with the infant spiritual body, and that spiritual body grows until they become like teenagers. Would you please provide a website so I view the slides later? I don't have them on any website actually. Inshallah, maybe the organizers be able to provide you with the slides. How would the permission be given? I find this aspect quite fascinating. You see, it's not like, for example, we ask permission from someone. It's just suddenly this attention is permitted to fall on something. A veil is lifted. This is the way the permission is given. It's something automatic. You know, for example, they know when they are there that now they can connect with their family. It means that the permission is given to them. Does our marhumin visit us on Friday nights? Well, the hadith said that it depends on their spiritual level, station. Some people can visit every day, some every 2 days, some every week, some every month, some every year, and some every several years. It depends on their stations. Now, Friday night, for them visiting us, apparently, I don't remember having seen it in any hadith, but for us connecting to them, either on Friday night, or especially we have special hadith saying that if you really want your marhumin see you when you go and visit them, you visit them Baynut Tulu'ain on Friday morning. That is between Fajr and sunrise on Friday morning. If you go at that time, then they can see you. And for Friday night as well, we have that they can sense us. When we go and visit their grave, they can sense us. But whether they are allowed to come and visit us, I don't know whether this time has any specific speciality. Is the reference to dreams? So each time we in reference to dreams, so each time we see our deceased in dreams and they are communicating a message, can we count on this as being valid and true? Yes, of course. I mean, many of these messages have proven to be true. Sometimes they are about things that we don't know at all, and we find out that they were true. Sometimes they talk about something in future. So not in all cases, but in some cases they are true. If the deceased does not have a grave, e.g. cremated or drowned, how can you visit them? Well, you cannot visit them, except for cremated people, you can visit their ashes. But anyhow, this privilege is not for everyone. It's only for those who have a grave. Or is there something else you can do? Of course, you can do many things. You can do charity on their behalf. You can recite Fatiha for them. You can recite Quran for them. The only thing is that you cannot visit their graves. Why is it that some see their deceased quite often while others don't? It's apparently a sort of capacity of the soul. And that doesn't mean some people are better than others spiritually or in terms of iman or something. This is the way their souls are created. That's why some people become medium to get into contact with the higher world, because their souls are more prone to that sort of connection. And sometimes even disbelievers have this sort of connections as well. It is a sort of pre-ordained gift of any soul which Allah gives, or which decides not to give, because not always is a good thing. Sometimes it's more troublesome than being good. What should we do to avoid going through Barzakh? Well, we have to be good. We have to be extremely good, actually. Extremely good akhlaq, extremely good behavior towards others. This would reduce Barzakh. Also, we have, for example, if you recite certain surahs like Surah Zulzalat in your salat, Barzakh is reduced or removed from you. However, the most important thing is the akhlaq. And akhlaq is the first thing that we have to be cleansed of if it is not in good shape. What includes the act of charity for them? Is it like majlis? Well, anything which benefits people, anything which benefits you, in terms of, for example, you fast to give the thawab away to them, you pray to give the thawab away to them, you recite the Quran, or you give charity to people. You see, all these things benefit you or people, and Allah put it in their accounts. And that's, of course, the glory of Allah, how He treats people. Would you be able to suggest how we can ensure we have the correct knowledge of God? Is it possible for you to present a course on this knowledge? This knowledge, when this Unwan Basri went to Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, he wanted such a knowledge. And Imam Jafar al-Sadiq said that, Ya Abu Abdullah, ليس العلم بكثرة التعلم ولكنه نور يقذفه الله في قلب من يشاء. This knowledge is not something which comes from studying or learning or listening to lectures. It is a light that Allah would put in the heart of whoever He likes. And then Imam alayhi salam said, فَإِنْ أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ فَاطْلُبِ الْعِلْمِ بحقيقة العبودية. If you really want that knowledge, you have to seek the reality of ubudiyah, to be the abd of Allah. And that, of course, this is a long hadith. Imam explains that. First of all, you have to completely put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, completely see everything from Allah. In this way, gradually this light shines in the heart, and the knowledge will increase about Allah. It's not something that we can learn from them. It's not theology, you see. Of course, every faith, every mazhab have their own theology about God. For example, these are sifatul zatiyya, these are sifatul fi'liyya, sifatul subutiyya, sifatul salbiyya. This is theology. That knowledge which helps in the hereafter is that light which comes in the heart. And that light, of course, needs haqiqatul ubudiyya. And haqiqatul ubudiyya is, again, not just to pray and fast, is the soul of these things, which is humbleness, humility, thankfulness, trust in Allah. When these things come, gradually our knowledge increases, and when knowledge increases, these things increase as well. When someone dies, does the roof come for 40 nights to visit the relatives? When someone dies, does the roof come for 40 nights to visit the relatives? I don't understand what's the meaning of does the roof comes for 40 nights, or maybe ruh comes for 40 nights. Oh, ruh, it's probably ruh. I haven't encountered such a hadith actually, that the ruh will come. It's possible, maybe, but I haven't seen any hadith in this regard. Thank you for Haydar Ali's comment. And yes, here we have, room and ruh. Yes. Last lecture touched on suicide. In most instances, a person commits suicide when they are mentally not stable. How then can they be punished for this? Can you please? I told you that this is Christian view. It depends. We don't give a blanket judgment on those who commit suicide, how Allah is going to treat them. As I said, it's a grave sin, and people do grave sins as well. And if grave sins are committed out of mental instability, even Allah would have some sort of consideration for that, and for the suicide, the same thing. What should we do to avoid going through fashar qalb? Sorry, I think I just jumped above. Yeah, I think these are the end of questions. I can't go lower. Where would I find these? Okay, slides. Please ask the organizers. Okay, here you can find them there in www.academy of Islam. What about the aborted child? Will they also grow up like teenagers? As I said, if the soul is created, yes, they do. Uh, and Thank you from Fozia for the comments, and thank you from Marzia for the comments. Well, thank you everyone. I have nice comments here. Thank you all, and thank you for bearing with me and listening. Inshallah, Allah will make us live together in paradise, both in Barzakh and in Akhirah, inshallah. I have one other question here. The amal for seeing the dead in dreams. Found, I believe, in Mafati. Is that authentic? You can try them. Sometimes I try most of these things, they won't happen. So anyhow, you can try them to see. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. When Imam, for example, alayhi salam, says something to someone, it doesn't mean that it works for everyone. It may only work for that person or people who have the same attitude or the same personality. So you may try them. And okay, thank you everyone for listening, for your comments, and inshallah Allah will increase our knowledge about Himself and about the awliya Allah. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin.